Welcome back to the third biannual New York State Food Summit. Thank you so much for bearing with us as we have some minor technical difficulties, but we're so grateful that everyone is here to join us today. It is now my honor to introduce you to our keynote speaker, Luis Guardia, President of the Food Research and Action Center, to be followed by responses from industry and policy experts, U.S. Senator Schumer, U.S. Senator Gillibrand, Susan Zimmett, the New York State Food and Anti-Hunger Policy Coordinator, Kizzy Williams, owner and executive chef of Allie B's Cozy Kitchen, Janet Popendick, Senior Fellow with the CUNY Urban Food Institute, and Joel Berg, CEO of Hunger Free America. And so now I welcome Luis. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Natasha, for that warm welcome. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you to the food pantries for this opportunity. You know, when I first took office at FRAC a year ago, it was our last fully in-person anti-hunger conference with Feeding America, and I was so warmly welcomed by the community with several invitations to visit folks around the network across the country. Unfortunately, the lockdown soon started after that, and so many things changed for all of us, right? But when we're ready to get back together for more in-person gatherings, New York is definitely at the top of my list. You know, it's become a bit of a second home to my family and me, with both of our children studying and working in New York. So with that, I just want to start out by saying a quick word of thanks to all of you for your tireless work and commitment to ensuring New Yorkers have the access to the nutrition they need during these challenging times. And what we've been able to accomplish is nothing short of incredible. You know, faced with a hunger crisis, the likes we have not seen in generations, it's amazing how we've all stepped up to the challenge. And programs like Nourish New York are a testament to how the anti-hunger community and government have risen together to meet this challenge. You know, the numbers are nothing short of amazing. Nourish New York has fed over 1.3 million households, and along with so many other food programs, it has meant so much to struggling families. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about, that in addition to these programs, we've also seen the importance of investing in complementary, sustainable, and scalable solutions so that we aren't faced with the insurmountable demand at food banks and the daunting long lines of cars queued up for assistance. You know, we all remember those images just emblazoned on our memory from front pages of our newspapers and the evening news. The pandemic, once again, like a lot of other emergencies, underscored how the federal nutrition programs are a key part to this solution. And fortunately, programs like SNAP, they're designed for these situations. You know, SNAP is our country's first and best line of defense against hunger, and its benefits have been essential to families putting food on the table and driving the economy. So SNAP can scale up quickly, and it does so significantly during moments of crisis. 43 million people participated in SNAP in September of 2020. That's up from 38 million in September 2019. And according to our friends at Feeding America, for every one meal provided by the food banks, SNAP provides 9. And when we talk about SNAP as an economic driver, we know it does so much more than putting food on the table. It's what people refer to as a counter-cyclical tool. It's an economic driver that is specifically designed to work in a downturn economy. So we've seen before that for every $1 spent on SNAP benefits, it generates about $1.50 to $1.80 in the local economy. It happens very quickly and it happens very locally. And that's what communities really, really need during the pandemic and what they'll need going forward. You know, the school nutrition programs also were a key part of the response to the hunger crisis. The USDA waivers we all worked so hard to achieve were critical to ensuring our children could still get the healthy food they needed. Schools and nonprofit organizations, they were given the flexibility to provide families with options to access meals through alternative means such as the grab and go and pickup locations. But we saw that more needed to be done. Many people couldn't access these meals. And this is why programs like Pandemic EBT were so essential to families. At FRAC, we are really, really proud to have been a key driver behind Pandemic EBT, a program that provides struggling families with the cash benefit they need to purchase meals that their children, who normally rely on the free or reduced price meals, could no longer access because the schools were shuttered. And now we have Pandemic EBT extended for children in childcare. And we have heard from hundreds of families across the country how this program has been nothing short of a lifeline to them. So indeed, it's been quite a first year to take on this role, but I am so fortunate to have been part of a great team here at FRAC and an outstanding network of folks across the country, partners like Hunger Solutions New York, who have shown great leadership during this time. And it is during this time that we've learned so much. As is the case with a lot of our social infrastructure, whether it's health or hunger or education, COVID not only highlighted weaknesses, it just magnified them to a degree that people really could no longer ignore. And this is why we really need to seize this moment to strengthen the federal nutrition programs. And we'll do so building on some of the lessons learned. So even though we have great excitement with vaccines rolling out, we know that it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time for especially low-income families to recover from the economic crisis. And that's why we need to think about long-term investments that are needed to deal with some of the systemic shortcomings we've seen. And these shortcomings are in the ways of connecting people with the programs and ensuring adequate benefit levels and ensuring that we have economic resiliency. So we're incredibly thankful to the administration and congressional leadership who also rose to meet this challenge with us. Programs like the American Rescue Plan was absolutely tremendous. And I wanted to thank Senator Schumer specifically for his leadership on this. The temporary 15% increase to boost was great, but it's scheduled to end in September. Could leave millions of families at risk of being unable to afford food. And this is why we need to look at permanent changes in the SNAP benefit levels to ensure families can continue to have access to food when they need it. And the plan was also helpful and it provided provisions to ensure children have access to year-round nutrition, including expanding summer EBT to 29 million students who are eligible to receive free and reduced price meals. Speaking of children, we've seen that our children's health and learning really took a hit during COVID. And that's why we need to ensure that we can have healthy school meals for all. That is so important because we simply can't pull the rug out from children when these waivers end. We need to ensure that these meals are available because it's an equity issue and it is absolutely central to our children's health and their learning. And I also want to take a moment to thank Senator Gillibrand for introducing a bill that's going to ensure that all children have access to nutritious meals while they're at school and in summer and after school programs and in childcare. And the last lesson I'll mention is probably one of the most significant ones that we've had to reckon with as a nation. And it's around our nation's historic racial inequities and how they showed up in the hunger numbers. We saw very clearly Black, Latinx, and Native American households not only disproportionately affected by COVID, but they were also disproportionately hit by the hunger crisis. The numbers were just tremendous. The magnitude of this crisis shone this spotlight that revealed 2 times or 3 times the level of hunger in our communities as opposed to the general population. And in the face of the greatest hunger crisis in a generation, I'm proud to say that FRAC and this community stood up to challenge highly problematic public charge rules that caused fear and confusion and kept many families away from accessing food. And we continue to work on those, on the after effects of those. So We need to heed these lessons, and we need to think about how we will build back better, not just as individuals, not just as organizations, but as a community and as a nation. And at FRAC, we believe the first step is to take a closer look at ourselves to ensure that our goals are grounded in racial equity. And we're taking a close look internally to make sure that these that this is the framework from which we will look at our policy. So we know this is a journey. We are all on it together, and we really look forward to doing this together as an anti-harm community and as a country. So as we do this, please let us know how FRAC can be a resource to you. I'll invite you to visit our website, frac.org. Follow us on social media at FRAC Tweets and on other platforms, and join the FRAC Action Network. There's so much great information there, and we really invite you to take a look and take advantage of everything that's there. And sort of in closing, just kind of one final thought I've been having. You know, we're in this process now and this time where vaccines are becoming more and more accessible, which was great. And as media attention kind of turns towards the reopening, we need to remind folks that there was a hunger crisis before COVID. So when people think of going back to normal, we have to remind people, well, normal wasn't so great for 30 to 40 million folks in this country. And so going back to normal isn't really what's called for. What's called for is bold and decisive action to address these issues. You know, we have done so much together to end hunger together, and we can do so many more great things together. And I know that together with communities like yours, we'll do even more. So I just want to say thank you again so much for your solidarity, for your partnership, your friendship, and I look forward to seeing everybody again in person sometime soon.
Thank you so much, Luis. Really appreciate your remarks and your leadership on a national level for everybody working together towards a hunger-free America. With that, we now look forward to hearing some responses to your keynote. And as well, we encourage people to put some remarks in the comments as we go through this. If we have a few minutes left at the end of this session, we will read some of the comments to the keynote and response. So our first response to Luis Guardia is U.S. Senator from New York, Chuck Schumer.
Hi, everyone. This is Senator Chuck Schumer, and thank you so much for letting me join you today for the New York State Food Summit. To all of our food pantries, to all of our workers, volunteers, and advocates who do incredible and such important work to end hunger in our state, thank you, thank you, thank you for leading the way. The work you do saves lives, especially now at a time when our state and our country have been pushed to the brink by this awful pandemic. You're all heroes, and I'm immensely grateful for your work. I promise you that every day I work in Washington, I will do everything I can to stand with you, because food insecurity has been one of my top priorities as U.S. Senator from the very beginning. Even before the pandemic, 1 in 10 New York households already suffered from food insecurity. But of course, COVID has made things so much worse. By some estimates, nearly 1 in 4 children in our state has struggled with food insecurity. This is unacceptable. No one, especially children, should ever have to wonder where their next meal is coming. That's why I was so proud that the American Rescue Plan extended the 15% increase in SNAP benefits through September 30th to help people afford groceries and help fight back against the hunger crisis in our country. We also extended the pandemic EBT program to help kids who normally rely on schools for their breakfasts or lunches. This will help feed roughly 22 million kids for the duration of the pandemic, especially during the crucial summer months. We also provided millions of dollars to increase the WIC cash value voucher to help parents produce fruits and vegetables for their children. We included funding for meals for young adults in emergency homeless shelters, and we included funding for senior nutrition programs like Meals on Wheels. These are just some of the things we accomplished in this historic relief bill, but alone they won't be enough. When the crisis finally ends, we need to lay a new foundation for a fairer and more prosperous New York, one where food insecurity is a thing of the past. I promise I'll work with you to make that happen. And until we have a chance to see each other again in person, I hope you all stay healthy and stay safe. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Senator Schumer. And now it's my pleasure to introduce U.S. Senator for New York, Kirsten Gillibrand, with her remarks.
Hi, it's Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, and it's my privilege to join all of you at the New York State Food Summit. I want to thank all of the organizations participating in this terrific event. Food pantries from Capital District, United Way, Siena College, and our New York State Community Food Assistance Network members, Rockland Community Against Hunger, Comfort Food Community, Concerned for the Hungry, Hunger Coalition of Otsego County, Hunger Action Network of New York, Broome County Council of Churches, CHOW, and Westside Campaign Against Hunger. The events of the past 14 months have challenged us, and all of you have really been on the front lines of this pandemic in the fight against hunger. Thank you for all that you do to help New York families. It's my pleasure to join all of you today and to participate in this event alongside Luis Guardia, Susan Zimmett, and Joel Berg. Over the past year, I visited food banks and food pantries across the state. And everywhere I've gone, there's been need like we've never seen before. There were either lines of people stretched around the block or lines of cars stretched down the street. I pushed for the American Rescue Plan to help address the hunger crisis by extending the 15% increase in benefits for SNAP and expanding the pandemic EBT program into the summer months, creating the WIC program's cash value voucher for fresh fruits and vegetables, and providing resources to programs older New Yorkers rely on, like Meals on Wheels. But we have to do much more. At the end of last month, nearly 17 million Americans still didn't have enough to eat. No parent should have to worry about where their child's next meal is coming from. That's why I'm working to expand summer meal programs across the country so that children can continue to access nutritious meals when school's out, to update and increase WIC benefits to reflect a modern, healthy diet, and to make the USDA's extension of universal free school meals permanent. Those changes will help kids grow up strong and healthy and help their families make ends meet. And as we work on the child nutrition reauthorization, we have a great opportunity to make a lot of these goals reality. Thank you all again for your leadership and your advocacy on hunger and food issues. You can count on me to continue lifting up your voices in Washington and fighting alongside you on behalf of New York families.
Thank you so much, Senator Gillibrand. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Susan Zimmett, New York State Food and Anti-Hunger Policy Coordinator from the New York State government. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, everybody. First, I'd like to thank Natasha Pernica for all the amazing work that she does. She's one of my key go-to people, and I just adore working with her. I'd like to thank Kathy and Libby for all the work that they did with us presenters to get comfortable with this technology. And Kathy and Libby spent a lot of time with me, so thank you. A special thanks to Senator Schumer and Senator Gillibrand for the outstanding work that they do on our behalf in the anti-hunger space. We know that it's a hard fight. It's been a tough past 4 years, but they are great advocates for us, and we've got your back. A special thank you to Louise for giving us such insight and inspiration. And a couple of quick words about FRAC. Louise is right. Please join the FRAC Action Network. They send you all the time the most up-to-date information on the federal programs that are being discussed in DC. They're on the Hill all the time. They are our face for the fight, and we are the wind beneath their wings, basically helping them to fight hunger on our behalf. And thank you, Louise, specifically for acknowledging Nourish New York, because us in New York are so proud of our governor for creating this program. Like Senator Gillibrand said, during the beginning of COVID, you saw the lines and lines of people waiting to get food in their cars like you've never seen before, and milk being spilt by the farmers because their customers had dried up when the schools closed and the restaurants closed. So Nourish New York was a very innovative program that basically created a client base for the farmers by being able to have the food banks with money from New York State purchase the fresh produce, vegetables, meat, and dairy from our New York farmers. The program started with 25 million, but because COVID has been extended for so long and hunger is so bad, the governor and the legislature increased it to $85 million, and it's still growing strong. It also got the attention of Congress, where the ag and markets were invited to present to the ag committees in DC about Nourish New York, and they got an extremely warm welcome because it's such an amazing program. And critically of importance is Nourish New York's success has basically driven how New York State is going to be starting to look at anti-hunger and how we work on it. And so it will be now the lens that we look through to forward our anti-hunger work. We will begin the process of looking at the entire food system from the grower to the consumer and everything else in between. We will be talking about the business approach versus a charity approach as we build out a robust New York State food system plan. Like everybody says, we can't go back. We have to build back better. And in the hunger field, we have to start to make a difference. And too much was exposed during COVID for us not to react. Another program that hasn't gotten as much attention was after the governor announced Nourish New York, he announced a COVID philanthropic fund where he asked people to donate money, product, and services to help fight hunger. And it was just absolutely amazing, the responses that we got, and from all over the world, not just New York State. With the money that we were able to raise, we were able to buy some cold storage, refrigerators for some pantries, and we're about to implement giving the food banks and pantries some of the money from this program to build on the home delivery programs that they started during COVID to make sure nobody's at home and nobody's getting food. We got a huge donation from HelloFresh and from the Patel brothers that made such a difference getting food to those in need. And the HelloFresh project actually spawned from 50,000 meals. We're now up to 500,000 meals. We have this amazing Veterans Feeding Veterans program that will be discussed at 1 o'clock in the state panel. But it's an amazing program. And what people need to understand, veterans suffer hunger at almost twice the rate of versus the general public. And so our goal is to make sure every veteran gets fed, and that's New York's way of saying thank you for your service. Most of the panel members that are going to be speaking after me will be addressing the federal issues. So let me close by just saying that we all know without a strong, robust federal safety net, the states and the emergency feeding programs could never meet the needs of the hungry. We need the federal government to be our partner and to understand the problem of hunger and food insecurity. We need a strong child reauthorization bill. We need universal school meals. That will be a game changer for every kid in America, giving them a leg up to be successful. It is critically important. We need to raise the Wage Act and other issues that address income inequality. Not every state is fortunate enough to have a Governor Cuomo who's already increased minimum wage, which will make a difference in the lives of low-income New Yorkers. So I just want you to know that on behalf of Governor Cuomo and the state of New York, we are here for you. We are available to help in any way we can. We are a partner with you. We couldn't do it alone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much, Susan. Really appreciate your response and remarks. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Kizzy Williams, owner and executive chef of Allie B's Cozy Kitchen. Take it from here, Kizzy.
Hello today, guys. What an honor to be here. And I would like to first start by saying, where do we go with hunger from here? As a woman of color that comes from a community that has suffered from food insecurity and violence, I would say we need to begin this at the Culture Center. The Culture Center is located 64 Quell Street, Albany, New York. And in my community, we're suffering from hunger because with violence. The The Culture Center has worked with the community to provide food. The food pantry has supported the Culture Center when it comes down to supporting my community with healthy food. But at the same time, it has not been enough. We're looking for support from our majority leader, Charles Schumer, and Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. Leaders as yourself, when you come to our community, it changes the dynamic of the children. The children have a chance to believe in themselves when they get to see you guys come in their communities and maybe hand out food to them. The Culture Center is located in a place that has been not noticed. Funds have not trickled down to our community because it's a small place in the capital region. My community holds 6,600 people. The outside of the community in Orbit Hill, they hold 4,500 people. So we have West Hill and Orbit Hill that sits together, that sits in a platform of crime and violence because of hunger. When families do not have enough food, it affects their education. They wind up not going to school when families don't have food. When families do not have food, it tends to, people will not find jobs when they do not have food. So what the Culture Center does is set up resources for the community. Food resources, job resources, home ownership resources. And at this moment with COVID, we have been really left behind. So today I sit here and I speak to you guys as a woman of color, as a woman who lived off the food pantry as a child, to say, please remember the Culture Center, 64 Quell Street, Albany, New York. Our mailing address is P.O. Box 834, Cohoes, New York, 122047. We are the forgotten side. And thanks to Natasha and the food pantry, WAMC, we have been able to receive something, but it has not been enough. So if you would like to help my community change their insecurity on food, come to 64 Quell Street. Come to the Culture Center. Look at my community or Google us. You can Google us on Facebook, the Culture Center. But if you want to know the knowledge of the community, read the newspaper articles. The community is suffering from violence because we do not have the healthy food that we need. There's no supermarkets around us. We're just in need. We are a community that has been left behind since it has been created, and I would say 100 years ago. So please, Charles Schumer, Senator Gillibrand, please look up the Culture Center, the Williams Francisco Initiative, and support us. We are a small nonprofit organization that Allie B's Cozy's Kitchen has created because the community has came to my restaurant for 7 years saying that they are hungry and we have fed them. So that was the main reason why we created the Culture Center, because Allie B's Cozy's Kitchen could not afford to supply the community with food the way when you're running a business. So please remember the Culture Center, 64 Quell Street, when you're looking to build a community, stop violence, and change food insecurity. Our children in our community is suffering. Our families in our community is suffering. and we need the help. We need the support. We need the change. And I would like to thank Natasha and our majority leader and our senator for listening today.
Thank you so much, Kizzy from Alley Bees. I think it's important when we talk about hunger and efforts that, Luis was speaking on the federal, talking from federal, and we're talking about federal policies, and we're talking about state efforts. And Kizzy, thanks for being here today to remind us about each individual neighborhood and the efforts in the neighborhoods. And thanks for being there for your Arbor Hill, West Hill community. Thank you.
Thank you, Food Pantry. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you, Senator. And thank you, our majority leader.
Great. And so now I'd like to introduce Janet Poppendick, Senior Fellow with CUNY Urban Food Institute, for her response. Janet, it's you.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here. And thanks to Kizzy for making it real. I'm delighted to have a chance to respond to Luis's keynote, which certainly organized the whole agenda that we need. I'm going to focus in on the healthy meals for all, the universal free school meals part. Among other things, I'm the author of Free for All, Fixing School Food in America, which is an argument for universal free school meals. And so I want to start by saying that I think we need to make our case rooted in the coming together part of COVID. We've talked about the way in which COVID has revealed the inequities and the separation, but it's also mobilized a great deal of community effort, which you folks are on the front lines of. So I hope we make our case for universal free school meals, not just because it's a far more efficient way that would eliminate a lot of an unnecessary paperwork and get rid of that annoying school lunch debt, but because it's an expression of our shared hopes in the future. Many of the essential workers that we're wanting to thank regularly are, as Claire Reed pointed out this morning in the Alice group, are not eligible for free and reduced price meals. They're above the eligibility cutoff, but they are still in need and need help. So we need to move to universal so that we're including those people at risk. We need to move to universal because it's a way in which we will be able to promote health through food education. We need to make food education a part of our curriculum and integrate the meal with the classroom. And we really can't do that unless the meal is effectively really available to all children. We need to harness the leveraging that Sarah Salem talked about for using good food purchasing to purchase for our schools from local farmers, from local processors, from organizations and businesses that treat their workers well, that put an emphasis on saving our environment. So if we move to universal, we will expand the volume of food that runs through the school food system, and therefore the impact of this leveraging through good food purchasing. School food also creates good jobs. And as people in food pantries certainly understand, jobs that are on the school calendar are particularly good jobs for single parents. And we have a lot of single parents in our society. So expanding school food programs is a way of expanding jobs that meet the needs of real people in real circumstances. I also think that universal free school meals will enable us to move school food from a kind of arena where differences are often exploited by children, where there's bullying, where there's mean girls, and move to the kind of shared meals that I remember from summer camp, meals that were occasions of inclusion, of joy, of eating together. I think we want to move in our society where and I think the early steps of a racial reckoning, we want to move towards systems that promote kids being able to interact freely and not be stigmatized by the basis of their parents' income. And I finally want to say that school meals provides an absolutely terrific place or location for organizing youth to get involved in food system change. So I think the Luis Guardians and Susan Zimmets and Kizzy Williams of tomorrow are eating school meals now, and we can help them organize to have a voice in the school meals in their schools and move on from there to leadership in our food system. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Janet. Really appreciate your perspective on the Universal School Meal Program. And we have finally one more responder to our keynote, Joel Berg, CEO of Hunger Free America. Before I invite Joel to give his response, I just want to remind you that if you have questions or thoughts for discussion, please put it in the chat, in the comments. We will have a few minutes after this for some discussion with our keynote and keynote responders to answer your questions in the chat comments. So with that, Joel, I'd like to invite you to give your response. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha, and thank you all your work and all the food pantries of the Capital Region and all your members and everyone watching. I want to reinforce Jan's call for universal school meals, particularly in rural and suburban areas of New York. That would be a game changer. I grew up in Rockland County, played very mediocre JV soccer, spent more time on the bench than I did on the field, and yet my school district, East Ramapo Central School District, gave me a free school jersey. They didn't ask my family's income. I got free lab equipment, free textbooks, free ride to school. Why we don't provide free school meals to every kid and micromanage keeping the somewhat poor families away from the very poor families is insane. And we need to, the Senate and the House, to pass Senator Gillibrand's bill, co-sponsored with Senator Sanders, to make universal free school meals a reality. You know, we used to fight fires with bucket brigades, one bucket at a time, one bucket at a time, one bucket at a time. They made us feel great. They were the faith-based armies of compassion of their time. You didn't need a big government bureaucracy. Volunteers just chipped in. There's only one teensy little problem with the bucket brigades. They didn't work. City after city burned to a crisp. And so what did we do? We replaced volunteer bucket brigades with professional fire departments. We replaced literally antiquated colonial lines where human beings handed one, bucket to each other with actual, professional fire trucks that delivers 2,000 gallons of water a minute, and government passed fire safety codes. And now cities don't burn down anymore. Why do I mention that? Because food drives are basically the bucket brigades of today. They're filling in some gaps, but they're not solving the problem. I love Nourish New York, but I really wish the state would do more to promote SNAP and WIC. Let me just read you a statistic. Last month in New York State alone, 1 million people in just 1 month couldn't get enough food, according to the Census Bureau. There's no way all the food drives, all the food pantries, all the food banks, all the soup kitchens in the world can do anything more than touch the side of that. Just a little glimpse of solving the problem. In contrast, in New York, and let me read this to get it precisely right, there were 2.7 million people 2.7 million people in March in New York who received SNAP food stamps benefits. They got $602 million worth of benefits because public policy increased those benefits. So that means that over the course of the year, SNAP benefits alone in New York City will be $7.2 billion with a B. $7.2 billion with a B. That is 84 times the dollar amount of food provided by the Nourish New York program. And yet there are hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers in suburbs, in New York City, all around upstate, who are eligible for SNAP, who are eligible for WIC and not getting it. So we need to do more collectively to help get those people those benefits, and we need to push further on the minimum wage. I'm great grateful the state has raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour, but the governor has exempted tipped workers. So if you're working based on a tip, you get way, way below that. And if you don't get a lot of customers today, you're working full time and still going hungry. So the best way to end hunger is increase jobs, increase wages, ensure an adequate safety net, and then all of you guys at charities can fill in the gaps. But we've got to get first things first and do the things necessary to truly get us on the path to ending hunger in America. So I thank you all for your work. I look forward to doing even more with you to finally end hunger in New York State and America. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joel. Appreciate the rally call. And so with that, we now invite you who are watching today to ask questions in the comments. We'll bring all of our keynote responders and Luis Guardia up onto our page, and please feel free to ask questions for any of our speakers for response. I'll kick it off with one question that I would like to ask everyone. If people today who are participating in the summit are to go away with either learning one thing that you think that is the most important thing for people to walk away with today, or if there is one particular action item that you would want people to walk away and do, I'd like to ask what you can, either of those or both of those. And I will start with Luis, if either one takeaway or one action item or both of those.
My main takeaway is we can't let up now. While we have, as I was mentioning, while we have great promise and excitement around the rollout of vaccines, and communities are starting to see things change, there are millions of low-income individuals for whom this is going to be a long, hard slog. And while we still have the lessons learned fresh in our mind from the greatest hunger crisis in a generation, we need to act now. We need to take advantage of this moment and make sure that people remember that the federal nutrition programs stepped in ways that were just absolutely necessary. But we can't go back to the way things were before, because we know that before we had a hunger crisis. And again, as we were saying before, COVID just shone a light on that so brightly. So let's remember that we need to make sure these programs are strengthened now and for the future.
Great, thanks, Luis. And now, Susan, I'd like to ask you to give your takeaway or action items.
I would actually build out on what Louise just said. And, the governor constantly, when he does his updates on COVID, talks about the fact that we want to do more than just build back better, that, if your house, got burnt down and you got insurance money, you wouldn't build it back exactly the same. You'd make the changes that you want to make as you're building back. And like Louise said, and everybody before me, there was a hunger crisis before COVID. COVID only exposed how bad the hunger crisis really is. It exposed how so many people are one paycheck away from actually having to go to a food pantry. So what we want to do in New York State is really start to look towards building a robust New York food system that looks at the farmers and how they grow the food, how we transport the food, how we get the food to fellow New Yorkers, how we build up, infrastructure to make sure we're doing the best job possible. So I guess my takeaway would be is that we still have a lot of work to do, but we at the state are absolutely committed. We're working with all of you. You're all our partners. And I guess the last thing I would just say is that, the takeaway for me would also be that hunger is nobody's fault, okay? And the stigma with hunger is just horrible. We know it's a hidden problem, although it's now more in the limelight because of COVID. It's not your fault if you're facing hunger, and it's up to us as government to basically step up to the plate and work to do what we can to make the policy changes to make a difference. So that would be my takeaways.
Thanks, Susan. I appreciate that. Kizzy, what action item or takeaway would you like people here to take with them?
Well, I would like for you guys to focus on ground zero. Focusing on ground zero is a place like 64 Quell Street, the Culture Center, where in this community, how can I say, focusing on a place like this is what make change, where we need the government to look at a place like 64 Quell Street of hunger, violence, a place that has every nationality from white, black, Asian, Latino, every nationality live in this community, but at the same time, every nationality in this community are fighting hunger. We need to start from a place like this where everyone is at and make change from there. So come to 64 Quell Street, Albany, New York, and support change right there, the Culture Center.
Thank you so much. And Janet, how about from your perspective?
Well, I think I made clear my sense that this is the time to move this country to universal free school meals. So, of course, I want everybody to get behind the healthy meals for all approach. But I have something else to say that really is directed at all of the volunteers and staff members who work in the food pantries, because I am sensing a pent up, what you could call it, delayed hedonism, delayed gratification. A lot of people have been in lockdown and been prevented from their normal pleasures. And I worry that the people for whom recovery will not be quick and immediate, for whom it will be a long slog, will be forgotten. And I think the people best placed to speak up and remind us all that we need an inclusive recovery that helps everyone are people who are doing this food access work on a day-to-day basis. So I just encourage you to speak up in your local communities, on the Action Network from FRAC, in all the opportunities, and just remind people that we're not done until we've rebuilt society in a way that meets all our needs.
Thank you. Thanks, Janet. Appreciate that. And Joel, how about you from your perspective?
I just say public policy, public policy, public policy. For those of us who ride on the New York State Thruway, we know that when engineers determined that the old Tappan Zee Bridge had to come down and we needed a new bridge, we didn't go to churches, synagogues, and mosques and do a bridge sale to get everyone to bring in bridge parts they needed. We understood that it was a governmental priority and a societal priority for the government to connect people from Westchester to Rockland. And we need to understand that about hunger. Even if we were to further raise the minimum wage in New York State by just $2 an hour, if it was even $17 an hour, and if you had one worker in a family working 40 hours a week, that would be another $80 a week for food. If you had two workers in that family, $160 worth of food per week. I dare say the best run pantries and kitchens on this call, no matter how wonderful the work you do, there's no way you could possibly come even close to adding that much more in groceries to people's carts. So that and the SNAP program really are the big ticket items along with school meals. Please don't think you can't make a difference on those other areas. I agree with the others here. This is a historic time. We have an historic opportunity to actually end hunger led by improvements in public policies.
Thanks, Joel. And from the food pantries for the Capital District and all of my colleagues at the New York State Community Food Assistance Network, the New York State Community Food Assistance Network, or CFAN, is new. And this is really an opportunity for food providers on the ground level, as well as other stakeholders, to come together to actually do some advocacy work. And one of the first initiatives that we worked on was adding food pantry and other charitable food workers to the eligibility 1B for the vaccine list, and we were successful. And so that was just one example of how by working together we can make change in state policy. And I know that we have some links to the New York State Community Food Assistance Network in the platform today, but please feel free to reach out to me if you would like to become an official member or learn more about how to get involved. Because having a way that we can, a platform for communicating with each other, sharing information on a regular and consistent basis, so we don't have to rely on summits and other large events, but having that relationships built so that we can communicate on a regular basis and support each other and our efforts. So we do have a question from some of our attendees today. I'll start with, okay, it's Katie Farrow. Her question on the free and reduced lunches going to all students in schools this academic year. Was this out of ease for paperwork requirements or belief that more children qualify due to economic constraints? What economic impact does this have on lost revenue from families who would have paid for the meals? Is there any one of our speakers who would like to respond to Katie's question?
I can get started. I think there might be other folks who might want to chime in. I'll just say from the perspective of FRAC, it all starts with the child, and it's all about their welfare, and that's kind of been our framework for it. You know, we've seen that I think as might have been mentioned earlier, the eligibility doesn't reach all children, and on top of that, we know that this, you know, there was a great article that came out recently in the Journal of American Medical Association that reminded us all that school meals are the healthiest thing children have all day, and it really needs to be expanded to promote the health and the welfare of children. In addition to that, we've also heard folks talk about the other benefits of you know, getting rid of horrible school lunch debt shaming, stigma associated with participating in the school meal programs. Yes, the paperwork and the efficiencies are great, and we think that just kind of adds to the rationale for doing this. But for us at FRAC, it all kind of centers with the child, and of course, you know, when we go into a free, you know, universal program for lunch and breakfast, we believe that there should be the you know, the full reimbursement available for schools. So I'll pause there in case anybody else wants to respond to that.
Thanks, Louise. Anybody else want to jump on that? Janet?
Yeah, I'll chime in just for a minute to say, you know, you hear there's no such thing as a free lunch, but how we pay for school lunch is a social choice that we make as a society. The revenue that parents might have contributed, you know, if the kids had been eating in school, that revenue was supplied instead by the federal government. So it was a shared contribution that we all made as a nation. So school systems were not being asked to produce these meals without the income to do it. I think that the challenge for school systems getting these meals to children when children were not in classrooms and not having access to the cafeteria was so enormous that it really would have been impossible for them to charge some families and provide free to other families. So it was more than just a reduction in paperwork. It was a logistical challenge that required us to move to a free approach.
Great. Thank you so much, Janet. Now we have a question from Randy Quackenbush. Question is, how can OTDA, DOH, and state ed work more closely with each other and stakeholders like food banks to better streamline efforts and programs? Would anybody like to respond to that question?
Well, I guess, Natasha, I'll take a chance.
Sure. Go for it, Susan.
Well, first, I guess I'd like to say that I think we are already working better. I think when the governor created this position that I was fortunately enough to be the one appointed to as the food and anti-hunger policy coordinator, one of the key aspects of my job was to try to get work out of silos and see how to better coordinate the work of all the different agencies that have their hands in the hunger field. And if you come to the state presentation at 1 o'clock, I actually do address this as one of the things going forward is how we connect the dots. So I have a great relationship with state ed, with DOH, with OTDA. And whenever anybody emails me, about an issue, I'm able to go directly to chamber with the problem and get things, get the attention that it needs to get. So I think we're already doing a lot of work in that field, and that's not to say that there's not more work that we can't do, but I think we're well on our way to being more cohesive, working together, because you now have one person on a chamber level responsible for hunger, and a lot of people know where I am, how to get in touch with me, and if they have a problem, they send it to me, and we're in constant communication. Doesn't matter what agency we have to reach out to, I can go directly to chamber and have the appropriate person in chamber reach out to the agency to figure out what the problem is. And so I feel really good about the work we're doing. I feel really good about the work we're doing with the food banks. I feel really good about the work we're doing with the pantries, especially working with Natasha and Greg Silverman on them building out the pantry organization. So we're just going to keep working and working to do our best with all of you and the state agencies and the federal government to make a difference.
Thanks,
Can I just
Susan. I think
just
it's a good point that your position has been really essential and critical for all of us coming together. I would want to add to that there is the New York State Hunger and Food Policy Council as well that brings together the different state agencies, and there are several work groups there that are working on specific initiatives. So I have to say that I am proud to be a part of New York State and the committee and work with Susan, where people are coming together. And I know there's always more we can do, but we definitely have a great structure and baseline to work from, and grateful to have you, Susan, in the role that you're in. Next question we have, Ellen Zimmerman. Is there any legislative policy change related to make it possible to purchase in-store prepared foods with SNAP? Any of our speakers want to respond to movements to purchase store prepared foods?
I'll respond. And first of all, it's always an honor to work with Susan. We and many on this call do work with her, but closely, and she's been a huge help. But in response to the previous question, I just say there are 2,500 agencies roughly in New York that get food through HIPNAP. A lot of them also got Nourish New York, and that goes through the state health department, not through OTDA, which manages the SNAP program. I do think there could be more coordination to provide even more support to basically say every agency in New York that gets state-funded food should also be doing SNAP and WIC outreach with extra state funds. In terms of purchasing hot foods, we at Hunger Free America, and you can go to our website at hungerfreeamerica.org, have called for that to be a change in federal law. It's ridiculous that you can go into a supermarket and there are two rotisserie chickens, one hot, one cold, same brand, same size, one price. You can buy the cold one, you can't buy the hot one, even though you would have to spend more money to heat up the hot one at home. That's just another manifestation of the classism, frankly, racially freighted thinking underneath some of these federal programs, that this is some sort of luxury that low-income people should be grateful to, and getting that hot rotisserie chicken is somehow a luxury they don't deserve. That's ridiculous, and that must be ended.
Great. Thanks, Joel. Really great comments. Anyone else have any thoughts on efforts to purchase store prepared foods with SNAP?
I just want to add in what Joel said, that I remember, hey, Janet, they seem to think you're me. What was I going to say? That I just find it really amazing when you go to the store and, you'll look at the hot chicken and you can't buy it with SNAP, but then the next day you'll go and you'll see the chicken across the aisle, and all of a sudden there's a sticker on it that says you can purchase with SNAP. It's really, really a slap in the face to low-income people, and it's got to be changed.
Thank you, Susan. Okay, our next question is from Annette Johnson. What measures do we need to educate the general public about the issue of hunger as a nationwide problem, not continually rely on food pantries and other non-governmental organizations to take care of the problem? So, yeah, what measures do we need to educate the general public, right? That we're not doing this, we're not ending hunger through food drives.
Yeah, I'll take a quick stab at that. I would say continue to be part of the community that like we have here, that allows you to lift up your voice. So A lot of us have, like a track with the Frack Action Network, we have tools where you can join on to voice your opinion to members of Congress at key times. And it's so important that us as an anti-harm community, as I was saying before, that we keep pressure on, that we continue to speak to the media about this. We keep talking to reporters about this, because there are, I think, as was said earlier, there is kind of like this pent-up demand for us, for stories and for society to kind of move on and get back to kind of what the life many people knew about. But remember, it's going to take a long time for low-income families to do this. And and some of the facts that we've heard here, some of the stories that we've heard here, really kind of speak to the power and the leverage of these programs. That, you know, when working together with programs like New York and others, these are the systems that are going to get us through the next crisis, that are going to, and they're going to help us get us out of this crisis, because again, it's going to take a while for folks.
Can I speak?
Thanks, Luis. Yeah, go for it, Kizzy.
What I would say is, you know, when we see commercials today about hunger, it's always another country. We should have commercials on the capital region, you know, like come into these poverty neighborhoods, videotape these communities so that the people can see what's going on right here in the capital region with hunger. And if we could make commercials on hunger in our capital region, then more people the general public can understand more. If we place addresses on our commercials, the general public can actually drive through these communities and see what's happening. So we need to showcase, as videotape it, have the news reporters come in, just showcase videos, because videos speak volume. And that's what we need to do more here in the capital region.
Thanks so much, Kizzy. Any other thoughts on educating the general public? Yes, Janet.
Well, we heard earlier from John Graham about the work that's being done at SUNY to make sure that the food pantries have refrigeration and what have you. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity on college campuses to educate a new generation of food activists who understand, who move beyond the sort of contributing a can to the canned good drive, to really understand the underlying, the kind of economics that the Alice analysis gave us, and the complexities of the various public programs and the work that they do. So I would be for integrating curriculum at the college level with efforts to enroll students for SNAP and shore up the food pantries.
Great. Thank you so much, Janet.
Natasha?
And, Susan, one more quick response and then we'll...
Okay. Very quickly, I agree with everything Jan just said, but I'd also just want to add in that that we have to not be afraid to talk about hunger. We know it's a hidden secret. You can go into any school and go into the guidance counselor and find out from them how many of them reach into their pocket to give a kid money to go buy lunch, okay? Or how many kids go to a friend after school so they could get a snack at somebody's house. So what we have to do is, just start to educate people to the fact if they face hunger, it's not their fault. They shouldn't carry the stigma of hunger, and they should be able to talk about it. And so we need to start getting it out from, under the closet, in the closet, talk about it and get people to understand that it is an issue. And yes, we do need to do PSAs talking about hunger and how prevalent it is and how it's not your fault.
Thanks, Susan. I think stigma is important. My grandparents used to use a food pantry more than 20 years ago. My grandpa was a retired union carpenter, and when they were much older, they were living on an extremely limited income, and the food pantry is what helped them make ends meet every month. So I think it's really important for people to share the stories and know there's no shame. It's a systemic issue. We need more resources to cover our basic needs in our country. I wanted to share with you all a quick mission moment, because we do that as a team when something inspiring happens or makes us feel really motivated or inspired. And I want to thank all of our speakers and all of our attendees for being here today. This food summit is really exemplifying. This is a huge mission moment for the food pantries for the Capital District. Our vision is a hunger-free capital region. And with the forming of the New York State Community Food Assistance Network this past year, it expands it to a hunger-free New York. And today, you all are helping inspire the hope in me, because I think sometimes the day-to-day you can say, am I making any progress? Are we actually moving the needle? I've been in this field for 20 years and the nonprofit sector. And thank you all for sharing inspiration and hope that by working together, hunger-free New York is attainable, and for us to organize and come together to actually see it happen. So thank you. I want to thank our speakers. I also want to thank my team, our team here at the food pantries, for all of their work in making today happen. So thank you, team. You guys are rock stars, and we're going to party later. So anyway, but thank you, everyone. We are going to take a quick coffee and networking break. So we have some networking rooms to participate in. So head over to some networking rooms if you'd like to meet some of the participants. There's a reminder that we have a pulse check poll to get your thoughts on some questions that we'd love to hear your thoughts on in the pulse check. And then after lunch, we will launch into the sessions, or excuse me, after the break, we'll be launching into the sessions. The next session starts at 11:40. And so at 11:40, the next session start. Before we head out, we'd like to have another word from our presenting sponsor, CEFCU. Thank you so much.
A primary focus of CEFCU's philanthropy is fighting hunger. In 2018, we became hydroponic farmers. Credit union employees grow fresh, organic vegetables year-round in a high-tech converted shipping container.
It was our first step toward trying to change the paradigm, even in a small way. We wanted to see, could we grow our way, literally, out of part of the problem? And I think we've been successful.
CEFCU has grown and donated more than 25,000 heads of lettuce, leafy greens, and herbs to local nonprofit organizations, including many in food deserts. In 2019, we purchased a freight farm for the Boys and Girls Clubs of the capital area. And this year, we donated one to the City Mission of Schenectady. They feed people in our communities while giving these organizations and the people they serve the chance to learn, grow, and generate income. Through hydroponic farming, CEFCU's impact in the community is literally growing every day. For more information, visit cefcu.com/freight-farm. CEFCU's Institute for Financial Wellbeing can help you improve your financial future and discover tips and tactics for meeting your short and long-term goals. The Institute's free, live, interactive webinars will empower you to build skills around all kinds of money questions. We offer something for everyone, from the young to the young at heart. The Institute's youth sessions help children learn about saving and setting goals. Our financial education for teens focuses on relevant topics and concepts that they can use immediately, such as looking ahead to possible careers or learning about positive money habits and practicing financial decisions. For adults of all backgrounds and income levels, CEFCU's Institute for Financial Wellbeing delivers workshops to help people build skills to start a budget, buy a home, tackle debt, and avoid being a victim of fraud. Visit cefcu.com/financial education to learn more.
Thank you, everyone. We'll see you back at 11:40 for your first session. Have a good break.